Little piece of clay from the library's collections is packed full of information from 4,200 years ago. The language of the inscription is Sumerian. Sumerian is the oldest written language. It's not related to any of the Indo-European or Semitic languages in that part of the world.
Beneath the blistering sun of southern Iraq, among the crumbling mounds of Sumer, lie clay tablets, older than the pyramids, older than the earliest empires. They record the tales of kings who ruled for tens of thousands of years, of floods that erased entire cities, and of sages who brought civilization itself to humanity. Modern eyes read them and see myths. But what if there is something far more provocative, hidden in plain sight? Ancient Sumerian texts reveal that there were 6 advanced worlds before us. Are we the 7th, the clay that refused to stay silent? In the mid-19th century, under the rule of the Ottoman Empire, a handful of European explorers began to suspect something else lay buried beneath them. Something older than Greece, older than Rome, older than the Bible. They were standing on the bones of Sumer. By the 1850s, excavations had begun in earnest at sites like Uruk and Eridu, cities that flourished as early as 4000 BCE. Local workers, directed by foreign archaeologists, drove their tools into compacted earth that had not seen the light of day for millennia. What emerged were not statues of kings or glittering treasure hoards, but clay tablets, thousands of them. They were small, rectangular, some are no larger than a modern smartphone, and they were covered in strange wedge-shaped impressions, cuneiform. At first, no one could read them. The marks looked mechanical, repetitive, almost coded, but the breakthrough had already begun decades earlier. In 1802, German scholar Georg Friedrich Grotefend made early strides in deciphering Old Persian inscriptions. Then, in the 1830s and 1840s, British officer Henry Rawlinson copied a massive trilingual inscription carved into a cliff face at Behistun in present-day Iran. That inscription, commissioned by King Darius I around 520 BCE, became the Rosetta Stone of Mesopotamia. By the 1850s, scholars were systematically unlocking cuneiform, and what they found changed human history. These were records, contracts, tax receipts, lists of barley rations, administrative accounts from temple complexes. By around 3200 BCE, the people of Sumer had developed one of the world's earliest known writing systems. The earliest tablets from Uruk, dating to roughly 3300 to 3100 BCE, recorded economic transactions in a rapidly urbanizing society. Grain deliveries, livestock counts, labor assignments. By 3000 BCE, Uruk may have housed 40,000 to 50,000 people, making it one of the largest cities on Earth at the time. Monumental temple platforms rose above the floodplain between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Irrigation canals cut through the land. This was not primitive wandering. This was an organized, stratified, engineered civilization, and the tablets kept coming. By the late 19th century, tens of thousands had been unearthed across Mesopotamia. They dated from different periods: the Uruk period, the early dynastic period, and the Akkadian Empire. Together, they formed an archive stretching across centuries, the oldest sustained written record humanity possesses. Among the economic lists and temple inventories, there were other texts, royal inscriptions, myths, king lists, accounts of floods, stories of times before. Scholars pieced together fragments that described rulers reigning for impossibly long spans, tens of thousands of years, before a catastrophic deluge reset the world. Mainstream historians interpret these numbers as symbolic, part of mythic tradition, not literal chronology. Exaggeration was not unusual in ancient royal propaganda, and yet the distinction was deliberate: before the flood, after the flood. Someone, in 2100 BCE or earlier, wanted to preserve that divide. These tablets were not written as stories for modern conspiracy theorists. They were written by administrators, priests, and scribes who believed they were documenting reality as they understood it. The invention of writing in Sumer was not for poetry first. It was for control, for accounting, for recording obligations, which means when myth appears in the archive, it appears beside grocery lists and tax records. Fact and legend share the same shelf. Today, More than 100,000 cuneiform tablets sit in museums around the world, and what they tell is utterly shocking. The Sumerian king list, rulers before the flood. In a museum drawer in Oxford sits a clay prism no taller than a hand. It does not glitter, it does not shout, but it carries a timeline that stretches back to what its authors believed was the dawn of kingship itself. Scholars call it the Sumerian king list, and it is one of the most unsettling documents to survive from ancient Mesopotamia. The most complete version we have is the Weld-Blundell prism, dated to around 1800 BCE during the Eisenlasa period. It is written in Sumerian cuneiform, 4 sides, hundreds of lines, a simple structure, a city, a king, and the length of his reign, then another city, another king, another number. It begins with a sentence that feels less like administration and more like a declaration. After kingship descended from heaven, kingship was in Eridu. Eridu, in southern Iraq, is one of the earliest known Sumerian cities, occupied as far back as 5400 BCE. But the king list does not start in ordinary historical time. It starts before a flood. The document lists 8 kings who ruled before what it calls the flood swept over. Their reigns are not measured in decades. They are measured in tens of thousands of years. Alulim of Eridu ruled for 28,800 years. Alalgar reigned for 36,000 years. En-Men-Lu-Ana held sway over 43,200 years. In total, these 8 pre-flood kings are said to have ruled for 241,200 years. Then comes the line that divides reality in two. Then the flood swept over. After that, kingship is lowered again from heaven, and the list resumes. But something changes. Reign lengths shrink dramatically. Post-flood rulers govern for hundreds of years, then eventually for realistic spans, 30 years, 40 years, 25 years. By the time we reach historically attested rulers like Ur-Nammu of Ur, who reigned around 2112 to 2019, 50 BCE, the numbers align with archaeological evidence. This is what makes the king list so powerful. It is not pure myth. Interwoven with the impossible are kings we can independently confirm through inscriptions and excavations. Cities like Kish, Uruk, Ur, and Akkad appear in both the king list and the material record. The later sections are anchored in history. So why begin with rulers who reigned for 28,800 years? Mainstream Assyriologists are clear. These numbers are not literal. Sumerian mathematics operated on a sexagesimal system with a base of 60. Large rounded figures such as 3,600, a sar, carried symbolic weight. Multiples of 60 appear repeatedly in the pre-flood reigns. The enormous spans likely reflect mythic time, a way of expressing grandeur, divine favor, or cosmic distance from ordinary humanity. Exaggerated reign lengths were common in ancient royal traditions across cultures, but symbolism does not erase intention. The scribes who compiled the king list around 2000 to 1800 BCE were not naive. They were educated administrators. They knew how to count barley rations and calculate land boundaries with precision. When they wrote 36,000 years ago, they did so deliberately. The flood itself echoes another Mesopotamian tradition preserved in the Epic of Gilgamesh, where Utnapishtim survives a divine deluge sent to destroy humanity. Archaeological layers at sites like Shuruppak and Kish reveal evidence of significant flooding events around 2900 BCE. The myth likely grew from real regional disasters. Still, the king list treats the flood as a civilizational reset, a dividing wall in time. Why preserve the memory of rulers who never plausibly reigned for millennia? Why carefully record cities that existed before the deluge, as if guarding a boundary between two worlds? The king list was political. It legitimized dynasties by showing that kingship flowed from city to city according to divine will. By tracing authority back to a mythical antediluvian age, later rulers embedded themselves in a cosmic continuum. They were not just governors. They were heirs to a chain stretching into deep, sacred time. But beneath the politics lies something colder. The earliest historians on Earth chose to begin their story not with their present, but with a lost era. They insisted there was a world before theirs, one wiped clean by water, the flood that reset the world. Long before the first stone temples rose along the Tigris and Euphrates, storytellers in southern Mesopotamia were already speaking of a flood so vast it wiped the slate clean. It survives in the Epic of Gilgamesh, a masterpiece of the late 3rd millennium BCE, in which a man named Utnapishtim is chosen by the gods to survive the deluge, to preserve life, and to carry the memory of civilization forward. His tale is strikingly familiar: a great inundation, a vessel built to withstand the waters, the destruction of almost everything human. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written in Akkadian cuneiform on 12 clay tablets, predates the Hebrew book of Genesis by centuries. The flood narrative in Genesis, long assumed to be one of the earliest recorded stories of a divine deluge, likely drew from this Mesopotamian precedent. Scholars have traced these motifs, ships, family survival, and animal pairs, to Sumerian and Akkadian sources dating back at least 2100 BCE, with precursors in oral tradition even earlier. Utnapishtim's ark, described in the epic with precise dimensions and compartments, is more than mythic embroidery. It reflects a culture intimately familiar with water, irrigation, canals, and the unpredictability of rivers. Sumerian cities such as Shuruppak, Uruk, and Kish were built in the floodplain of the lower Mesopotamian alluvium, where seasonal inundations could be devastating. Excavations at Shuruppak reveal an occupation layer abruptly buried under clay and silt, dating roughly to 2900 BCE. Similarly, at stratigraphic evidence suggests episodes of sudden flooding during the early dynastic period. In 1929, German archaeologist Hermann Hilp and others first highlighted the alignment of these flood layers with textual accounts of destruction. Later studies, including radiocarbon dating of silt deposits in southern Iraq, confirmed sudden sedimentation events around 2900 to 2700 BCE. In Uruk, similar findings show layers of debris that would have forced populations to relocate or rebuild entirely. So, did the flood myth encode a collective memory of these disasters? Was Utnapishtim a symbolic survivor, a vessel for memory of the collapse of early urban civilization? Archaeology suggests the answer may be yes. Entire layers of settlements vanish beneath water-deposited clay. Trade routes were disrupted, temple complexes abandoned, agricultural terraces buried. Civilization itself could be erased in a matter of years, yet the memory of it persisted in stories, in king lists, and in epic poetry. Even the Sumerian king list hints at this continuity and rupture. Pre-flood kings ruled for impossibly long periods before the flood reset their world. Post-flood rulers reigned for more realistic spans, and cities like Uruk and Kish re-emerged in the historical record. It is as if the flood marked a clean break. But what if there is more? The 7 sages and the pattern of 7. Long before the clay dried into the Sumerian archives, long before kings tallied their reigns in tens of thousands of years, there were whispers of teachers, beings who carried civilization itself on their shoulders. They were the Apkallu, the 7 sages, and their story emerges from the same cuneiform tablets that record kings, floods, and laws. They were not human, yet they were not gods in the full sense. Scholars describe them as semi-divine figures, mythic instructors sent from the gods to guide early humanity. Their mission was monumental: teach writing, agriculture, architecture, ritual, and wisdom. The Apkallu first appear in texts dating from the Old Babylonian period, around 1900 to 1600 BCE, but their origins are likely older, woven into Sumerian oral tradition. Names appear Adapa, Wan, and Emeduranki, each associated with a city, a river, or a temple. They were not rulers in the kingly sense. They were advisors, culture bearers, keepers of knowledge that bridges the mortal and the divine. One tablet from the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh lists them alongside instructions for kings, emphasizing their role in passing sacred wisdom that legitimizes rule and civil order. And then there is the number 7. It recurs relentlessly in Mesopotamian cosmology. 7 heavens stacked above the earth, 7 gates of the underworld. 7 divine decrees, 7 stars considered sacred. The number is not arbitrary. Ancient Near Eastern numerology often imbued 7 with completeness, perfection, and cosmic harmony. 7 is a pattern, a rhythm, a code embedded in religious practice, temple design, and myth. Sumerians and Akkadians alike counted in cycles of 7, whether marking days, ritual observances, or celestial events. It was sacred math, and it structured the universe in a way that humans could understand and honor. Yet, for all its symbolic meaning, the repetition of 7 invites a darker, more thrilling question. Could these 7 sages, these carriers of civilization, be more than allegorical figures? Could the pattern of 7 itself point to cycles that surpass human memory? The Sumerian king list's impossibly long pre-flood reigns and recurring 7s spark theories of forgotten civilizations. Archaeology at Eridu and Uruk shows early mastery of urban complexity from 4000 to 3000 BCE, yet evidence remains fragmentary. Excavations reveal cycles of building and rebuilding, but no definitive proof of lost advanced worlds. Could the Sumerians have remembered that their civilization rose atop the ruins of others long vanished? The Anunnaki, gods, or something more? In the beginning, according to the Sumerians, the cosmos was a layered expanse of heavens and earth, and within it moved a pantheon of powerful beings known as the Anunnaki. Their name appears in cuneiform tablets dating back as far as 2100 BCE, often translated as "those who from heaven to earth came." They were not faceless forces. They had domains, duties, and personalities. Enlil, lord of air and storms, could grant kingship or punish mortals with drought. Enki, god of wisdom and waters, taught humans arts, crafts, and ritual knowledge. The Anunnaki were central to Sumerian religion, featuring in creation myths, the Sumerian king list, and temple rituals in cities such as Nippur, Ur, and Eridu. They were divine arbiters, shaping society, agriculture, and law. Mainstream scholarship is clear. The Anunnaki were gods. They were mythological, symbolic, and deeply woven into the religious worldview of Mesopotamia. Excavated temples, votive statues, and inscriptions from the early dynastic period, around 2900 to 2350 BCE, show their worship was real, but there is no evidence that they were visitors from another world. Sumerian texts, including the Enuma Elish and the myth of Inanna's descent, present them as divine but distinctly part of the human mythological universe. Traditionally, the Anunnaki were seen as divine beings who mediated between humans and cosmic forces, teaching civilization and enforcing sacred law within an ancient religious worldview. In 1976, Zecharia Sitchin published The 12th Planet, claiming they were extraterrestrials from a planet called Nibiru, who genetically engineered humans to mine gold. He read Sumerian texts as literal records of alien intervention, interpreting floods and divine kings as encoded memories. However, professional Assyriologists reject his claims, citing flawed translations, misread cuneiform, and no archaeological or linguistic evidence for alien contact. So, what is the reality? The 6 worlds before us hypothesis. Long before epic myths and divine king lists, southern Mesopotamia was steadily laying the groundwork for civilization. During the Ubaid period, around 6500 to 3800 BCE, small farming villages along the Tigris and Euphrates developed irrigation canals, mud brick homes, and early temple structures. These communities learned to manage seasonal floods, transforming harsh floodplains into productive farmland. By around 4000 BCE, the Uruk period marked a dramatic but gradual rise in urbanization. Cities expanded, administration grew more complex, and social organization intensified. By 3300 BCE, Uruk covered roughly 2.5 square kilometers and may have housed tens of thousands of people. Monumental structures like the White Temple rose above the city, while extensive irrigation systems sustained agriculture. Writing emerged in the form of proto-cuneiform tablets, primarily recording economic transactions such as rations and livestock counts. Early astronomy developed to regulate agricultural cycles and religious calendars. Yet the fragility of civilization is undeniable. Mudbrick erodes, floods bury cities, and time obscures memory. Around 2200 BCE, the Akkadian Empire collapsed amid severe drought, supported by paleoclimate data from sediment cores and geological studies. Later, around 1200 BCE, the Bronze Age collapse saw major Mediterranean powers disintegrate due to environmental stress, invasions, and economic breakdown. Complex societies can unravel in decades. But was there a world before ours, long vanished, leaving only fragments of memory pressed into clay? No surviving Sumerian tablets or cuneiform inscriptions state that 6 advanced technological civilizations existed before humanity. What remains are king lists, mythic epics, and flood stories. Modern writers often extrapolate from these, noting pre-flood kings with reigns lasting tens of thousands of years and recurring sacred numbers like 7, then constructing theories of lost civilizations. Many ancient cultures viewed time cyclically. The Sumerians described epochs marked by floods and renewal. Hindu traditions tell of yugas, vast ages of rise and decline. Mesoamerican records recount repeating suns and cataclysms. From such patterns, modern theorists imagine recurring golden ages. The fascination with lost worlds is ancient. Plato's Atlantis told of a mighty society destroyed by the sea. Archaeology, however, shows gradual urban development in places like Uruk and Eridu, real floods around 2900 BCE, and climate-driven collapses such as Akkad's decline. No evidence supports advanced pre-human empires, though history reveals civilization's fragility. This is the boundary between myth and reality. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.